Welcome to Valor and Violence. The Mongol officer noticed it first. Something carved into the chest plate. Not decoration, not prayer. Numbers. Lieutenant Hong Dagu crouched beside the body, wiping blood from the metal. 30 meters. 3 seconds. Leather weak at joints. His fingers traced the scratches. Fresh. Done during battle. He stood slowly, scanning the beach littered with 80 dead samurai. Every single corpse wore scratched metal. November 5th, 1274. Dawnlight revealed Tsushima Island's beach transformed into an autopsy theater. The Mongol invasion force had won. 80 Japanese warriors dead. Victory absolute. But Hong Dagu, veteran of 40 campaigns across Asia, felt something wrong coiling in his stomach. He called for General Liu Fuhang. The bodies themselves told contradictory stories. Samurai killed in aggressive forward charges, but positioned deliberately, spread across the beach in patterns that forced Mongol forces to respond from multiple angles. Warriors who died testing different Mongol weapon systems. Some fell to arrows, others to thunder bombs, others in close combat against specific unit types. Liu Fuhang examined 3 corpses in succession. Each armor carried different scratch notations, arrow penetration depths, explosion radius estimates, shield formation response times. They were taking notes, Liu said quietly. The Korean general Kim Bangyong joined them. He pointed to white cloth strips sewn onto every samurai's armor. Funeral shrouds. Prepared before battle. They came here to die, Kim said. This was planned. But planned how? Planned why? The Mongol casualty reports arrived. 312 dead, 247 wounded. Nearly 500 casualties inflicting defeat on 80 men. The mathematics made no sense. The Mongol Empire conquered nations. They had perfected mass warfare. How could 80 men, using inferior weapons, create this exchange ratio? Hong Dagu studied the scratch marks systematically. Every armor piece contained different intelligence, weapon effectiveness ranges, optimal attack formations, vulnerabilities in Mongol cavalry charges, weakness in supply logistics. One samurai's armor mapped the entire beach landing operation, tracking unit deployments with frightening accuracy. This wasn't a last stand, Hong realized. This was reconnaissance. The discovery spread through Mongol command. Officers examined bodies with new eyes. They found more. Detailed observations about Korean ship construction vulnerabilities. Notes on Chinese artillery reload speeds. Assessments of conscript morale among different ethnic battalions. Each dead samurai was a sensor. Each death a data point. Liu Fuhang ordered the beach sealed. No soldier could discuss what they found. But the damage was done. Mongol troops had spent 6 hours pacifying this beach. 6 hours burning empty villages. 6 hours pursuing an enemy already committed to death. 6 hours while Japanese scouts carried intelligence reports to the mainland. The commander's tent filled with grim faces. They studied maps of mainland Japan, Hakata Bay. The next invasion target. How much did Japanese defenders now know? What tactical adaptations would they implement? Kim Bangyong voiced what everyone thought. They turned their warriors into spies. They purchased military intelligence with samurai lives. The economic calculation was brutal. 80 samurai dead. But the intelligence they gathered, priceless. Details that would shape Japanese defensive strategy for the entire invasion. Observations that revealed Mongol strengths and weaknesses Japanese commanders had never seen. Hong Dagu examined the final body, the commander, Sosukuni Kakuni, age 41, Lord of Tsushima. His armor carried the most extensive notations. Master intelligence synthesis. Strategic assessments. Even psychological profiles of Mongol leadership styles observed during the landing. On Sukakuni's left forearm guard, scratched in careful strokes. They can be hurt. They can be slowed. They can be beaten. Not a prayer. An analysis. A conclusion drawn from systematic battlefield observation. The Mongol officer stood silent on that blood-soaked beach, understanding finally what they faced. Not suicide, not fanaticism, not blind courage, something far more dangerous. Weaponized intelligence gathering. a military culture willing to trade lives for knowledge, an enemy who transformed certain death into tactical advantage. The sun climbed higher. Mongol forces prepared to advance inland. But Hongdagu kept thinking about those scratched messages. About 80 men who died, recording what they saw. About Japanese commanders on the mainland, right now, reading detailed after-action reports purchased with samurai blood. The invasion of Japan had succeeded at Tsushima. But somehow, standing among 80 dead enemies, Hongdagu felt they had already lost something critical. The Mongols had revealed themselves. Every weapon, every tactic, every organizational weakness. And somewhere across that narrow strait, Japanese warriors were learning. 3 weeks earlier. Dazaifu, mainland Kyushu. Sosakuni Kokuni knelt in a room that smelled of incense and desperation. Around him sat 17 men, regional commanders, clan leaders. The closest thing Japan had to unified military command. Outside, rumors swirled. Mongol ships massing in Korean ports. Invasion imminent. Tsushima cannot hold, Sosakuni said simply. No one disagreed. The island sat 271 square miles. No fortifications, no walls. 80 samurai against the largest invasion fleet in history. The mathematics were clear. But Otomo Yasuyori, commander of Kyushu's northern defenses, leaned forward. Then evacuate. Pull your men back. We need every sword for the mainland defense. Sosakuni unrolled a map. Not of Tsushima, of ignorance. We know nothing about them, he said. The Mongol composite bow. Actual effective range? Unknown. Thunder bombs? Blast radius? Unknown. Their cavalry tactics against prepared positions? Unknown. Ship landing procedures? Unknown. Command structure vulnerabilities? Unknown. His finger traced the strait between Korea and Japan. Every nation they conquered learned these answers too late. After cities burned. After populations died. We have one advantage they don't expect. Time to learn. The room went quiet. Tsushima, Sosakuni continued. Sits here. First landfall. Flat beaches perfect for observing landing operations. No civilians in the impact zone after evacuation. Open terrain, ideal for testing their capabilities. He paused. A laboratory. Shimazu Yoshihisa understood first. You want to use your men as sensors, Sosakuni finished. Each samurai assigned specific observation targets. Arrow ranges, weapon effects, formation responses, psychological assessments. We engage deliberately. We test systematically. We record everything. And then you die, Otomo said flatly. And then we transmit. Sosakuni pointed to evacuation routes, fishing boats, hidden observation posts, runners. The intelligence reaches you within 12 hours. You adapt. You prepare. You implement countermeasures based on observed reality, not speculation. The proposal violated everything. Samurai died for victory, not data collection. Warriors fought for honor, not reconnaissance. This was brilliant, said Adachi Yasumori, the shogunate's military coordinator. And insane. Sosakuni's voice remained steady. The Mongols have conquered 24% of Earth's land surface. They've perfected warfare through systematic application of lessons learned. We cannot match their experience. But we can steal their knowledge. One battle, 80 lives, complete military intelligence on enemy capabilities. He pulled out prepared documents. Each samurai would receive specific observation assignments. Michitake would test arrow effectiveness, deliberately exposing himself at measured ranges. Yoshiaki would assess thunderbomb capabilities, timing fuse lengths, and blast patterns. Tomonari would evaluate cavalry charge dynamics, forcing repeated engagements to gather statistical data. You're describing suicide with paperwork, Shimazu said. I'm describing intelligence operations with samurai characteristics, Sosakuni replied. Every major power that fell to the Mongols made the same mistake. They fought blind. They assumed. They guessed. Then they died ignorant. We will die informed, and you will fight educated. The strategic logic was undeniable. Japan faced invasion by the most successful military force in human history. Conventional defense would fail. But unconventional intelligence gathering? That could shift the balance. Otomo voiced the unspoken concern. Your men, they'll volunteer for this? Sosokuni's expression hardened. They already have. We discussed it. Every warrior on Tsushima understands. Our deaths purchase your preparation. Our observations become your tactics. Our sacrifice transforms into your victory. The meeting continued 3 hours. They worked out details, signal systems, information priorities, data transmission protocols. How to ensure observations reached mainland commanders even if all 80 samurai died. Adachi designed the reporting structure. Each samurai would scratch observations directly onto their armor during combat. Real-time note-taking. If bodies were recovered by Japanese scouts, intelligence survived. If Mongols examined corpses, the scratched notes would look like random damage, religious inscriptions, perhaps prayers. But they were neither. The geographic analysis sealed the decision. Tsushima's main beach offered perfect observation conditions. Flat terrain forced Mongols to execute standard landing procedures. No fortifications meant they'd deploy full capabilities. Open sightlines allowed comprehensive assessment of weapons, tactics, formations. It's a proving ground, Yoshihisa realized. You're turning your island into their demonstration range. Exactly, Sosokuni said. They'll show us everything. And we'll record everything. Then you counter everything. The final question came from Otomo. What if they bypass Tsushima entirely? Sosokuni smiled without humor. They won't. Kublai Khan wants Japan to watch its frontier burn. He wants terror. He wants us demoralized. His invasion strategy depends on psychological warfare. He paused. We'll use that against him. Let him demonstrate his power. Let him reveal his arsenal. Let him think he's crushing resistance, while you're actually conducting reconnaissance, Adachi finished. The commanders agreed. Tsushima would become an intelligence operation disguised as a last stand. 80 samurai would transform into 80 observation posts. Their deaths would purchase knowledge that could save millions. As the meeting ended, Otomo pulled Sosokuni aside. This plan, it's not just tactics. You're redefining what it means to serve. Sosokuni nodded slowly. Bushido says, death before dishonor. I'm saying death becomes service. Observation becomes weapon. Intelligence becomes victory. He looked toward Tsushima, invisible beyond the horizon. The Mongols think they're invading an island. They're actually entering an examination room. And we're the professors willing to die to grade their performance. 2 weeks later, Mongol ships appeared on the horizon. The laboratory was ready. The fleet that approached Tsushima represented 50 years of accumulated military genius. 900 ships, not a random armada. A perfectly calibrated invasion system designed by 3 conquered civilizations. Korean shipwrights built the hulls. Chinese engineers installed the weapons. Mongol tacticians commanded the synthesis. General Lu Fuhong stood on the lead vessel's deck, watching Japan emerge from morning mist. Age 53. Veteran of the Sichuan campaign, the Dali conquest, the subjugation of Song China. He'd commanded forces that erased cities from maps. This invasion? Routine. His deputy Hong Dagu reviewed troop dispositions. 20,000 warriors divided into specialized units. 3,000 Mongol cavalry, elite troops from the steppes, born in the saddle, trained from childhood to kill efficiently. 5,000 Korean infantry, experts in siege warfare and naval operations. 8,000 Chinese conscripts, engineers, artillerymen, support personnel. 4,000 auxiliaries from a dozen conquered territories. But numbers meant nothing without integration. The Mongol system worked because it learned. Every conquest added new capabilities. Defeated Persia contributed siege engineers. Conquered China provided gunpowder weapons. Subjugated Korea delivered naval expertise. The empire accumulated knowledge the way rivers gathered tributaries. Consider the composite bow. Mongol craftsmen had perfected it across 3 generations. Layered wood, horn, and sinew. Draw weight exceeding 160 pounds. Effective range 350 meters. Triple the distance of Japanese asymmetric bows. A Mongol archer could kill you before you knew he existed. But the bow was obsolete technology compared to what came next. Thunder crash bombs, Chinese invention, Mongol refinement, iron casings packed with gunpowder and shrapnel, ceramic shells filled with poisonous smoke, weapons that exploded with sound and fury, designed to terrify as much as kill. Japanese defenders had never seen explosives, had no concept of chemical warfare, would face technology 500 years ahead of their experience. Hongdagu checked the artillery manifest. 37 catapults, capable of launching projectiles 300 meters. Not for siege work, for beach bombardment, clearing landing zones, destroying defensive positions before troops even disembarked. The tactical doctrine was equally sophisticated. Mongols didn't charge blindly. They probed, they feinted, they coordinated across vast distances using drum signals and flag systems. While European knights still fought in individual glory, Mongol units maneuvered like a single organism. General Kim Bangyang commanded the Korean contingent, age 47. He'd spent 23 years suppressing rebellions across the Korean peninsula, knew coastal warfare intimately. His men had perfected amphibious assault techniques through brutal trial and error. Kim studied the Tsushima coastline through a bronze viewing tube. Flat beaches, no fortifications, perfect landing conditions. His ships would hit the shore in 3 waves. First wave established beachhead. Second wave secured interior positions. Third wave brought supplies and siege equipment. Standard procedure. Executed flawlessly across dozens of invasions. The command structure represented the empire's genius for organization. Liu Fuhang held supreme authority, but beneath him, specialists controlled their domains. Kim directed naval operations. Hong commanded cavalry forces. Chinese Engineer Corps operated independently, following technical protocols refined through generations. Communication systems bound them together. Signal flags conveyed orders across the fleet. Drum patterns synchronized unit movements. Messenger riders carried detailed instructions. The Mongol military functioned as an information network, processing battlefield data and adapting in real time. Japanese defenders understood none of this. Their intelligence on Mongol capabilities came from second-hand reports, Chinese merchant stories, Korean refugees' testimonies, vague descriptions of thunder weapons and horse archers. Nothing concrete, nothing actionable, like describing an elephant to someone who'd never seen beyond their village. The technological gap was staggering. Mongol armor used layered leather plates, light, flexible, surprisingly effective against cutting weapons. Japanese samurai wore elaborate iron and lacquer suits, beautiful, heavy, designed for individual duels, not mass warfare. Mongol horses came from the steppes, small, tough, capable of covering 80 kilometers daily while surviving on minimal forage. Japanese horses were mountain breeds, larger, slower, bred for rice paddy terrain. Mongol tactics assumed unit cohesion. Warriors fought as disciplined formations, following precise commands. Japanese samurai culture emphasized individual prowess, single combat, declared challenges, honorable engagement between named warriors. 2 completely incompatible military philosophies. Liu Fuhang had studied Japanese resistance strategies. Coastal fortifications? None observed. Naval forces? None existent. Unified command structure? Laughable. Japan's defenders were scattered clans who spent more energy fighting each other than preparing for invasion. The Mongol intelligence assessment concluded Japan would fall within 6 months. Kyushu first, then the main islands. Minimal casualties expected. Population would surrender once they witnessed Mongol military superiority. Standard conquest timeline. Hongdagu approached with the landing schedule. First wave hits the beach at 0600. Samurai resistance anticipated. Minimal threat. Estimated Japanese forces on Tsushima, perhaps 200 warriors maximum, likely fewer. Liu nodded approval. Secure the island by noon. Execute any warriors who resist. Display their bodies as warnings. We advance to mainland positions by tomorrow dawn. The orders circulated through the fleet. Weapons prepared. Troops assembled. The machinery of conquest engaged its gears. 900 ships carrying the concentrated military knowledge of 3 continents approached an island defended by 80 men using tactics unchanged for 500 years. The outcome seemed inevitable. What the Mongols didn't know, they were sailing into an examination. And the 80 samurai waiting on that beach? They weren't defenders. They were researchers conducting the most expensive field study in military history. November 4th, 1274, 5:47 in the morning. Taira Kagetaka was 19 years old and terrified. Not of death. He'd accepted death 3 weeks ago during the ritual preparation. What terrified him was forgetting his assignment. Test thunder bomb blast patterns. Estimate fuse timing. Measure effective radius. Observe fragmentation dispersion. Record everything. He touched the small chisel tied to his wrist. For scratching observations onto armor, his hands shook slightly. Around him, 79 other samurai made final preparations. Some prayed. Others checked weapons they knew would barely be used. Kagetaka reviewed his mental checklist again. Sosukuni Kakuni moved among them, not offering encouragement, confirming assignments. Michitake. Your target? Arrow effectiveness testing. I expose myself at 10-meter intervals from 50 meters to direct contact. Record penetration depth based on range. Yoshiaki? Cavalry charge dynamics. Force multiple engagements. Document horse speed, formation cohesion, reaction time to sudden direction changes. Kagetaka? The young samurai steadied his voice. Thunder bomb analysis. Count seconds between ignition and detonation. Map blast radius through deliberate positioning. Assess shrapnel spread patterns. Sosukuni's eyes held something like pride, or perhaps sorrow. You understand this is not suicide. No, my lord. This is research. The distinction mattered. Suicide was meaningless. Research served purpose. They weren't throwing lives away. They were investing them. Purchasing knowledge with blood. Each death, a transaction that bought mainland Japan tactical advantages worth 1,000 soldiers. 6:15. Mongol war drums began. The sound rolled across water, a rhythmic heartbeat of approaching doom. Korean battle songs followed. 20,000 voices harmonizing promises of annihilation. Sosukuni gave final orders. Phase 1. Beach landing observation. Let them come ashore. Document disembarkation procedures. Unit organization. Command signals. Phase 2. Weapon systems testing. Engage at ranges designed to provoke specific responses. Phase 3. Close combat analysis. Force them to deploy full capabilities. Remember, you're not fighting to kill, you're fighting to learn. The plan was precise. 80 samurai divided into 3 groups. First group would test ranged weapons. Second group would evaluate cavalry tactics. Third group would assess infantry formations and thunderbomb deployment. Kagetaka belonged to the third group, the most dangerous assignment. To study explosives, you had to survive near explosions. To map blast patterns, you had to position yourself in the kill zone and somehow escape. Repeatedly. 6:42. First Mongol ships grounded on the beach. Korean infantry poured out, not charging. Organized, methodical, shield walls forming, archers taking positions. Exactly as Sosukuni predicted. Mark the timing, Sosukuni called. Document everything. Samurai scratched observations onto leather notebooks tied to their saddles. Ship to shore time. 4 minutes per vessel. Troops per ship, approximately 35. Formation assembly, 6 minutes. Command structure, visible through flag signals. The Mongols advanced slowly, cautiously. They'd conquered continents through careful procedure. No reckless charges. No wasted effort. 7:20. Range testing began. Michitake rode forward alone. Stopped at exactly 50 meters from Mongol lines. Sat motionless on his horse, presenting a stationary target. Mongol archers responded. Arrows flew. Most fell short. Michitake noted this, scratching observations onto his arm guard. He advanced 10 meters. Sat again. More arrows. Some reached him now, deflecting off armor at steep angles. Another 10 meters. The arrows came heavier. One penetrated his shoulder guard. Michitake recorded penetration depth visually, comparing the arrow shaft against armor thickness. 30 meters. Effective wounding range for stationary targets. He advanced again. 20 meters. Arrows struck with frightening force. One punched through his thigh armor. Another hit his horse's flank. But Michitake kept observing, calculating, recording. At 10 meters, a volley meant for one man arrived like rain. Michitake's horse collapsed. He fell deliberately, scratching final observations as arrows filled his body. 10 meters. Lethal concentration possible. Multiple hits inevitable. Armor penetration guaranteed. His assignment complete. Michitake died with his data recorded. 8:05. Cavalry engagement phase. Yoshiaki led 12 samurai in a charge against Mongol cavalry positions. Not to break through. To provoke response, to test their countercharge capabilities. The Mongols reacted predictably. 300 cavalry wheeled to intercept. Yoshiaki's group split deliberately, forcing the Mongol formation to fragment. He observed their pursuit patterns, how quickly they were formed, command signal delays, optimal counter-maneuver timing. They charged again from different angles, testing Mongol adaptability. Each engagement revealed information. Cavalry response time, approximately 2 minutes. Formation flexibility, high, but there a weakness. When forced to turn sharply, horses stumbled in beach sand. Terrain reduced their mobility advantage. Yoshiaki scratched notes between charges. Sand disrupts cavalry. Force sharp turns. Target outside riders during formation changes. A Mongol arrow found his neck. He stayed conscious long enough to complete his notation. Then darkness. 9:30. Thunder bomb testing. This was Kagetaka's moment. His terror transformed into focus. Chinese artillerymen positioned their weapons, ceramic shells visible in their hands. Mongol infantry pushed forward, driving the samurai back toward prepared positions. The first thunder bomb arced through the air. Kagetaka tracked it. Estimated fuse length from smoke trail. Started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Explo. The blast wave hit him like a mounted charge. Sound obliterated thought. Shrapnel screamed past. His horse reared. But through ringing ears and disorientation, his mind cataloged data. 4-second fuse. Blast radius, approximately 15 meters. Fragmentation effective to 20 meters. Psychological impact devastating. He scratched numbers onto his chest plate with shaking hands. Another bomb. He positioned himself deliberately at the edge of the previous blast radius. Testing boundaries. This one detonated closer. 3-second fuse. Shrapnel tore his left arm. Blood obscured vision. But he kept recording. Variable fuse lengths. Unreliable timing. Exploitable. The third bomb changed everything. Kagetaka was too close. The explosion lifted him from his saddle. He hit the ground hard. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't see. His right hand found the chisel, found his armor. Scratched with fading strength. Close range. Lethal. But limited supply. Count explosions. They carry perhaps 30 bombs total. Around him, the battle continued its predetermined choreography. Each samurai executing assigned observations. Each death purchasing specific intelligence. The beach transformed into a vast data collection operation disguised as military resistance. Tominari tested shield wall vulnerabilities. He charged repeatedly at identical angles, mapping weak points in formation joints. Korean infantry killed him efficiently, but not before he documented precisely where shields overlapped imperfectly, where gaps appeared during movement, where command signals originated. Sadamune evaluated officer targeting. He ignored common soldiers, focusing attacks exclusively on men with distinctive armor or command flags. Mongol forces responded by protecting leadership more heavily. Sadamune noted this behavioral change. Scratched observations about command structure vulnerabilities. Died with tactical intelligence about leadership protection protocols. 11:45. Final phase. Sosukuni led the last 20 samurai in what appeared to be a desperate final charge. Actually, it was comprehensive system stress testing. They attacked simultaneously from multiple angles, forcing Mongols to deploy all available capabilities at once. Thunder bombs exploded, cavalry charged, archers fired in volleys, infantry formations advanced. The complete Mongol military arsenal revealed in coordinated response. Sosukuni observed everything. Arrow storm patterns, cavalry coordination under pressure, infantry support timing, artillery reload speeds, command signal sequences. He scratched observations onto every available surface. Arms, chest, even his horse's armor. A Korean spear found his gut. He fell slowly, used the falling time productively, scratched final assessment onto his forearm guard. They can be hurt, they can be slowed, they can be beaten. Not hope, analysis, conclusion drawn from systematic observation. 12:17, the last samurai died. 80 men lay scattered across Tsushima's beach, but their armor told stories, stories written in scratched metal, stories containing military intelligence worth more than 1,000 conventional warriors, stories that Mongol officers would puzzle over. Not understanding, they stood in an autopsy theater examining their own tactical vulnerabilities. Stories that Japanese scouts, watching from hidden positions, were already transcribing for the desperate run to mainland command posts. The laboratory experiment was complete, the data collection successful. 80 researchers had purchased Japan's survival with their systematic deaths. Kagetaka didn't die immediately. He lay in the sand, lungs struggling, vision darkening at the edges. Blood pooled beneath him. Around him, Mongol soldiers moved through the carnage, finishing wounded, looting bodies. He should have been terrified. Instead, his mind kept calculating. 37 thunder bombs deployed. I counted 37. They're running low. His right hand still gripped the chisel. His armor still bore empty space. One final observation, the most important one. Mongol conscripts, not committed. Korean infantry showing hesitation. Chinese engineers arguing with commanders. He scratched the words with fading strength. His last contribution to the intelligence report that would save his nation. Coalition forces. Exploit divisions. A Korean soldier approached, saw Kagetaka's moving hand, raised his spear. Kagetaka felt nothing, just satisfaction. Mission complete. Across the beach, similar scenes unfolded. Michitake had died at 7:53, his armor covered in arrow penetration data. Yoshiaki at 8:41, cavalry analysis complete. Tomonari at 10:15, shield formation vulnerabilities documented. One by one, 80 research subjects completed their final reports and ceased functioning. But Sosukuni died last, deliberately. He positioned himself near the command observation point, close enough to overhear Mongol officers discussing next moves. His wounds were mortal Korean spear through the abdomen, but he held consciousness through pure will, listening. Lu Fuhang's voice carried across the beach. Secure the perimeter. Burn the villages. We camp here tonight. Tomorrow we advance. Tonight. Not immediately. Sosukuni's lips moved, forming words no one would hear. You're afraid. You don't understand what happened here. You need time to process. His hand found his forearm guard one last time. Scratched the intelligence that would change everything. Delayed advance. Psychological impact successful. They fear what comes next. Then Sosukuni Kikuni, age 41, Lord of Tsushima, commander of the most successful intelligence operation in medieval warfare, allowed himself to die. 2 kilometers inland, hidden in coastal caves, 3 Japanese scouts watched through bronze viewing tubes. Hayashi Morikage had been a fisherman before the war. Now he served as forward observer, responsible for confirming intelligence transmission. He'd witnessed the entire battle from concealed positions, watched 80 samurai execute their research protocol with devastating precision. His 2 companions were already preparing for the run. Mainland Japan lay 48 kilometers across the strait. Fishing boats waited in hidden coves. The intelligence had to reach Dazaifu Command within 12 hours. They're examining bodies, Morikage whispered. Mongol officers. They see the scratches. His companion Takeda grunted. Let them look. They don't know what they're seeing. But Morikawa wasn't certain. Hongdagu knelt beside Sosukuni's corpse for a long time, studying the armor, tracing the scratched characters. The Mongol officer's face showed understanding dawning. "Doesn't matter," the third scout said. "Intelligence is already compiled. We observed everything. The scratches are confirmation data, not primary source." True. The scouts had recorded the battle independently. Arrow ranges tested. Thunder bomb capabilities demonstrated. Cavalry vulnerabilities exposed. Infantry coordination gaps revealed. Everything Sosukuni's plan required. Morkage pulled out a leather document case. Inside, detailed observations written in coded shorthand. 37 pages of military intelligence purchased with 80 lives. "The boats leave at sunset," Takeda said. "Mongols will be focused on camp establishment. We'll have 6-hour head start." They waited as afternoon shadows lengthened. Watched Mongols systematically destroy empty villages. Execute elderly civilians who'd refused evacuation. Plant victory banners on Tsushima's high ground. Standard terror tactics. Designed to demoralize. To break resistance before it formed. But Morikawa noticed something the Mongols didn't. Their soldiers moved nervously. Conscripts clustered together. Korean infantry cast wary glances toward the corpse-strewn beach. Even Mongol cavalry seemed subdued. 80 men had inflicted 500 casualties. 80 men using inferior weapons had forced the greatest military machine in history to expend massive resources. The exchange ratio violated everything soldiers understood about warfare. How did they do it? The question rippled through Mongol ranks. More importantly, what awaits on the mainland? 447. The scouts began their withdrawal, moving carefully through pre-planned routes. Behind them, Tsushima burned. Ahead, desperate commanders waited for the intelligence that would determine Japan's survival. Morikage carried Sosukuni's final message in memory. 37 thunder bombs, 4-second fuses, 15-meter blast radius, limited supply, arrow, effective range 350 meters, cavalry vulnerable on soft terrain. Coalition forces show internal divisions. Delayed advance confirms psychological impact. Every observation tested under combat conditions. Every data point verified through systematic experimentation. Every conclusion written in samurai blood. The fishing boat launched at dusk. 3 men rowing frantically toward mainland Japan. Behind them, signal fires lit Tsushima's peaks. Mongol victory celebrations. Ahead, darkness and desperate hope. 6 hours later, the boat grounded on Kyushu's northern shore. Morikage ran. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. The document case felt heavier with each step, but inside that leather container rested Japan's salvation. Dazaifu Command Post. Midnight. Regional commanders assembled. Morikage collapsed in the doorway. Thrust the document case forward. Tsushima. Complete intelligence. All 80 samurai executed their assignments. Otomo Yasuyori opened the case. Began reading. His expression changed. Horror at the price. Wonder at the completeness. Strategic calculations already forming. Thunder bombs, he said aloud. Limited supply. Approximately 37 per invasion force. 4-second fuses. Exploitable timing. Other commanders crowded around, reading over his shoulder. Each page revealing battlefield secrets the Mongol Empire had protected for 50 years. Adachi Yasumori spoke quietly. 80 men just changed the odds. The intelligence spread through command structure like wildfire. Couriers departed for regional strongholds. Every defending force would receive the Tsushima observations. Every commander would adapt tactics based on verified combat data, arrow ranges, cavalry vulnerabilities, explosive weapon limitations, coalition force divisions, psychological weaknesses, logistical constraints, all purchased at the cost of 80 lives. Otomo stared at the final page. Sosukuni's last observation. His handwriting deteriorating as death approached, but the message clear. They can be hurt, they can be slowed, they can be beaten. Not prophecy, not hope. Evidence-based conclusion from systematic military research. The price of knowledge had been paid in full. Now Japan would collect the dividend, Hakata Bay, November 19th, 1274. The Mongol fleet arrived, expecting easy conquest. They found something else entirely. Japanese defenders had transformed in 15 days. Regional commanders implemented Tsushima intelligence with ruthless precision. Every tactical adaptation based on observations purchased with samurai blood. General Liu Fuhang noticed the differences immediately. Japanese forces no longer challenged individual Mongols to single combat. They maneuvered as coordinated units. They targeted officers specifically. They exploited terrain systematically. Someone had taught them. The beach landings went wrong from the start. Japanese archers positioned themselves at precisely 360 meters, just beyond Mongol composite bow range. They'd measured the killing distance at Tsushima. Now they owned it. Mongol cavalry charged across the beach, hit soft sand that Japanese scouts had deliberately soaked with seawater overnight. Horses stumbled. Formations broke, exactly as Yoshiaki's dying observations predicted. Thunder bombs exploded. Japanese defenders scattered at the first smoke trails. 4 seconds. Count to 4 and move. The psychological impact that devastated Tsushima's samurai meant nothing to prepared warriors who understood the weapon's limitations. Hongdagu watched Japanese forces execute tactical maneuvers that shouldn't exist. They attacked Korean infantry at formation joints where shields overlapped imperfectly. They forced Mongol cavalry into sharp turns on unstable ground. They retreated precisely 15 meters beyond thunderbomb blast radius. "They know," Hong said to Liu. "They know everything." The battle continued 3 days. Not the 6-hour massacre Mongol planning anticipated. 3 grinding days of Japanese resistance that exploited every vulnerability observed at Tsushima. Coalition forces began fracturing. Korean conscripts questioned orders. Chinese engineers refused to advance catapults into archer range. Mongol cavalry grew cautious, remembering stories of Japanese demons from Tsushima who killed while dying. Adachi Yasunori commanded the defense. He carried Sosekune's intelligence report like scripture. Every tactic, every maneuver, every calculated risk based on Tsushima data. When Mongol forces deployed thunderbombs, Japanese defenders counted explosions. 37. Then waited. No more bombs came. Limited supply confirmed. The Mongols tried standard siege tactics. Failed. Japanese forces had adapted fortification designs based on artillery observations. They tried cavalry charges. Failed. Defenders forced them onto terrain that negated mobility advantages. They tried psychological warfare. Failed. Tsushima's sacrifice had created cultural immunity to fear. November 21st. Storm clouds gathered. Liu Fuhang ordered fleet withdrawal. Not defeat, strategic repositioning. But everyone understood. Japan's unexpected resistance had delayed the invasion beyond seasonal weather windows. Autumn storms were arriving. That night, the wind came. History calls it kamikaze, divine wind, typhoon that destroyed the Mongol fleet. But the divine wind succeeded because Japanese resistance, informed by Tsushima intelligence, had prolonged the fighting into storm season. 80 samurai had bought 15 days. Those 15 days bought 3 days at Hakata. Those 3 days bought the storm that saved Japan. The mathematical elegance was perfect. 7 years later, the Mongols tried again. 1281, second invasion, larger fleet, more soldiers, better preparation. Japanese defenders met them with refined tactics built entirely on Tsushima's intelligence foundation. Coastal fortifications designed around thunder bomb blast patterns. Archer positions calculated from confirmed range data. Cavalry countermeasures based on terrain vulnerability assessments. The second invasion also failed. Another storm. Another divine wind. But storms only matter if defenders survive long enough to receive them. Modern military historians study Tsushima as asymmetric warfare's perfect execution. Intelligence gathering disguised as combat. Systematic data collection under lethal conditions. Tactical adaptation based on verified battlefield observations. The Japanese Defense Force Staff College teaches it still, how 80 men transformed certain death into strategic advantage. How sacrifice with purpose multiplies beyond calculation. How knowledge, properly gathered and rapidly disseminated, defeats superior force. The scratched armor pieces were recovered decades later, preserved in temples across Kyushu, physical evidence of the most expensive intelligence operation in medieval history. Museum visitors see scratched metal. Military analysts see operational genius. So Sukune Kakune's armor rests in Dazaifu's Kanzenji temple. His final observation still visible after 750 years. They can be hurt, they can be slowed, they can be beaten. 3 sentences that saved a civilization. The Mongol Empire conquered from Poland to Korea, 24% of Earth's land surface, but never Japan. The seeds of that failure were planted on Tsushima's beach, where 80 researchers, disguised as warriors, conducted systematic military analysis while dying methodically. Intelligence analysts worldwide study the operation. Perfect execution, complete data collection, immediate tactical implementation, 0 survivors, 100% mission success. The most successful military failure in history wasn't a failure at all. It was reconnaissance. It was research. It was 80 men who understood that some knowledge is worth dying to obtain. Because their deaths purchased more than survival. They purchased understanding. And understanding, properly applied, defeats even the greatest empire the world has ever seen. Tsushima's laboratory closed after 1 day, but its lessons echo across centuries. Some battles are fought not to win but to learn. Some deaths serve not honor but knowledge. Some defeats become victories when the intelligence gathered outlasts the men who gathered it. 80 samurai, 80 observation posts, 80 data points that changed history. The Mongols never understood what happened. They saw suicide. They recorded victory. They moved forward confident in inevitable conquest. They were already beaten. They just didn't have the intelligence to know it yet. The armor scratches are still visible. 750 years later, physical evidence that intelligence, properly gathered, defeats empires. But here's what haunts me. How many other battles in history were actually reconnaissance operations we misunderstood? How many heroic last stands were systematic data collection missions? If this kind of tactical genius existed in 1274, what intelligence operations are happening right now that we're too close to recognize? Next time on Valor and Violence, we're examining another battle where everything you think you know is wrong. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Because military history isn't about who won. It's about understanding why they won. And sometimes, the losers were playing a completely different game. Drop a comment. Tell me which historical defeat you think might actually have been something else entirely. I'll see you in the next one.